Call is now being recorded.
Okay, James, so tell me what the latest is with the band. Are you touring behind last year's record? Is that kind of what's happening?
Yes, we are. Yeah, the touring is reaching kind of a fever pitch right now. We just came off of a 3-week run around the South and the eastern half of the states. And we're really excited. Our second single off the record, The Walker, has been picking up a lot of steam. So we've been seeing a difference in the shows of people knowing the words to that and just going crazy when we start playing it.
And how was it to, return to the studio for this second album? Did you feel like the pressure was off or the pressure was actually on because you had to follow up the first one?
The pressure never really, it never really goes away. This record, we knew we were kind of taking a moonshot with the stylistic change and going for a bigger audience, and I think we've accomplished that. Right now, all we got to do is live up to our reputation as a live. That's one of our strong points. We're, really comfortable on the stage and really confident that this is going to go over pretty well.
Yeah, and could you talk more about the sort of shift to, sonically, to more of, I guess, like an indie pop direction? What was the thinking with sort of wanting to shift things around a bit?
Well, it was, I guess you could say, half calculated and half just a product of being out on the road for 3 years, touring the first record and becoming known in the first place. It was, we got a lot of notoriety on the first record for being a throwback nostalgia act, which was fine. That was kind of what was in the air at the time. That was what we were feeling with the production of that first record. Myself being a horn player and an arranger, I was just, like a duck in water making that first record. And, but we all kind of realized that, we had more in us and that, people were ready to hear more from us. A lot of the acts that we were touring with around that time were doing the same nostalgia kind of 60s thing, and some people have ran with it and made legendary names for themselves, and some people have also evolved into more modern sounds. And I guess we kind of fall somewhere in between. I mean, we've always been a hodgepodge of a band, and what you're hearing on the new record is just kind of a reflection of all our collective influences growing up. As part of the MTV generation, even though we're all highly trained and literate in the great tradition of LP-based soul-derived music, we also grew up with MTV and new wave and songwriters of our generation, and it's just kind of a reflection of the sounds that we all have in us, and touring for all those years, bouncing ideas off of each other and listening to each other's iPods. It's just all coming out.
And now you have a jazz classical background, right? Officially, but as you said, you've been influenced by everything you hear, I guess, and stuff that other people share with you. So it all sort of kind of blends together then in the sound. Or
certainly, yeah. I mean, I was classically trained as a kid, grew up as a jazz musician, started working professionally in my teen years, and going on to college, it was performance all the way, and that was what my degree was in, but I was also soaking in, British electronic bands and pop music from the 60s and hip-hop and reggae, all kinds of Jamaican music, from style, rocksteady to roots reggae and, DJ-based music. So, yeah, it's all in there. I'm bringing kind of a resume of bands that is really, really eclectic, and that's kind of what I'm throwing into every Fitz and the Tantrums show, is everything that I've done with all those other styles.
And the band, came together so quickly, originally. I was kind of, a lot of groups they come up for years and they're working on themselves, working on the lineup, and people leave and people, new people join. So I'm interested in hearing more about this sort of instant chemistry that you have, and whether that's, easier or harder to maintain because, you didn't have all that time to get to know each other before you were kind of thrown together.
It was interesting how it all came about because, we made the record. Michael Fitzpatrick called me and asked if I would do a bunch of horn arrangements and play on his first demo songs, which eventually became the first EP. He had a lot of studio musicians working on that, and his collaborators, Chris Seafried, and it was kind of a studio job until we decided to play him live because the songs just begged for that. He asked me if I knew any female singers that would complement his voice, and I recommended Noelle right off the bat. I had just been on tour with her with a lot of hip-hop acts and played on her solo album with her band, The Rebirth. And the other guys in the band, Jeremy, John, and Joe, originally, Jeremy and John were, I had worked with Jeremy, our keyboard player, in other bands like Breakestra, and he brought a great resume. Having worked with Macy Gray and a bunch of other people, John Wicks had worked studio gigs in town and a lot of great LA bands. So, and our original bass player, Ethan Phillips, at the time, later went on to work with other projects, but I had known him for years as well. Joe Carnes, our bass player, came on board shortly after the first year of touring, and it's just been cohesive ever since.
So, and having these connections, has that helped with sort of the chemistry on stage? As you're known for your, really exciting live shows. But do you have to work on that, or is that just sort of that's there, or it isn't there to have that kind of excitement when you perform?
We all have that excitement, and the chemistry is a really fortunate byproduct of just the mutual respect and the musicality that we have for each other. So, it really worked out in that way.
And I think you came to Atlantic City, fairly early on, with the last record, or the first record. Was that been a good place for you to perform? Has been a good receptive audience, or? Yeah,
for sure. I remember a big show we did in Atlantic City was Dave Matthews band Caravan that Dave Matthews put on his own festival there, and that was a really supportive crowd for us. His audience always brings a good set of open ears, and it's always been good for us.
And you got another early boost from Daryl Hall appearing on his the TV show that he has. And so, what has that meant for the band to have that exposure? And I mean, of course, it's amazing how much Fitz's voice sounds, like Daryl Hall. It's kind of an uncanny thing for listeners.
Yeah, that was the no-brainer part of it. I mean, when we were relatively unknown, Daryl picked us up to be on that show, and the results of that have been immeasurable. I mean, that was going on 3-4 years now ago that we did that, and we still get fans that come up to the shows after the show and say, I first heard about you from watching Daryl's house. So it's had a lasting effect. Just being on that show and being in the presence of Daryl and his band, who are just consummate veterans, was a real eye-opener for all of us and kind of made us realize the people that we aspire to, if we're still doing it after as many years and having an effect on people like Daryl is now, I mean, we'd be totally thankful. But yeah, his show really did a lot for us as far as exposure and getting new audiences in.
So now, what's on tap for the band moving forward? You're doing a lot of touring right now. Are you thinking about the next record and what that might sound like? Are you working on anything new when you perform, or are you mostly doing songs that you've already, recorded that people have heard?
Yeah, I mean, we've been sweating it out over this record for so long, and we're in it so deep right now this summer with festival season that we haven't really had a chance to discuss the next record. I mean, it's sort of a glimmer in our eye. But, yeah, right now it's just full-on touring, and we hope to get as many people into this record more than just a dream as possible.
And how is this record to perform live compared to some of the more sort of retro stuff? Do you have to amp up some of the, live versions because the sound is so different, or, how do you work that into your set?
Well, it's funny for me. It's been a challenge just getting everything to happen at once. I mean, on the first record, and from the inception of the band, I was just a sax player, and I'd, play sax lines and flute for the whole set and do a little bit of background vocals. On this album, there's so many electronic sounds happening and different textures that I kind of had to branch out. So I'm playing keyboards, I'm playing guitar, I'm playing some percussion, and doing a lot more background singing. So in addition to the horn playing, so it's been a welcome challenge for me personally, and for the band, like I said, we're really comfortable on stage. So to translate these songs live has been a pleasure over the course of the touring cycle, and we're kind of confident about presenting the songs in a live setting and not being so beholden to the recorded version that that's all you hear when you show up for a show. You're actually going to get a personalized version of that record that feels more live and is more dynamic, I think.
So, yeah, it sounds like you're really the hardest working man on that stage with all these instruments that you're juggling, and must be a lot of handing things off to people and grabbing them in the moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of turning into a one-man band, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's everything I had to ask for today. So we'll call it an interview, and thanks so much for calling in, James. I appreciate it.
Great, you got it. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.